The grand chamber of Velcara Station floated in the darkness between stars, a monument to 300 years of carefully maintained peace. Inside its crystalline walls, representatives from 7 major species gathered around the circular council table, their forms as varied as the worlds they came from. Ambassador Thelnara of the Sivith adjusted her translator collar and watched the holographic displays with her 4 golden eyes. Today marked exactly 3 centuries since the last human transmission had gone silent. "Another year of prosperity," announced High Coordinator Zax then, his scaled form shimmering under the station's artificial lights. "The trade agreements have held. Our borders remain secure. The Kresh Dominion reports military readiness at optimal levels." Thelnara noticed how the other ambassadors shifted when the Kresh were mentioned. Commander Vraltok of the Kresh sat motionless in his powered armor, a living weapon wrapped in metal. The Kresh had grown powerful in humanity's absence, their fleets now numbering in the tens of thousands. Some whispered they had grown too powerful. "We should address the mining rights dispute in Sector..." Zax then began, but every screen in the chamber suddenly flashed red. Alarms screamed through the station. Thelnara's fur stood on end as emergency protocols activated across Velcara. The holographic display at the center of the table exploded into a star map, showing the entire council space. Dozens of red markers appeared simultaneously, each one representing a massive energy signature. "What is this?" demanded Ambassador Jor-El of the Methane Collective, his environmental suit hissing as he leaned forward. A technician's voice crackled over the speakers, filled with disbelief. "Sirs, we're detecting unknown vessels emerging from hyperspace. Initial count is 87 ships. No, correction, 140. They're still coming." "From where?" Zax then's voice remained calm, but Thelnara saw his claws extend slightly. "Sol System High Coordinator." The chamber fell silent. Every ambassador knew that name. Sul, Earth, humanity's cradle, the dead system. Commander Vraltok stood abruptly, his armor servos whining. "Impossible! The humans are extinct. We made certain of..." He stopped, but the words hung in the air anyway. Thelnara felt cold. The official records said humanity had disappeared after the war with the Kresh 300 years ago. The unofficial whispers suggested something darker. She had always wondered what really happened to the species that once claimed 15 colony worlds. "Energy signatures are off the scale," the technician continued, his voice rising. "These readings don't match any known drive system. Sirs, one of the vessels is approaching Velcara. It's big." The main display shifted to show external camera feeds. There, emerging from the black, came a ship unlike anything Thelnara had ever seen. It wasn't built like council vessels, all smooth curves and efficient design. This ship looked like it had been grown rather than constructed, its hull a mix of metal and something organic, pulsing with blue light. It dwarfed Velcara Station, easily 5 times larger than the biggest Kresh dreadnought. "Receiving transmission," the technician said. "It's on all frequencies, audio and visual." "Put it through," Zax then ordered. The holographic display flickered, then resolved into the image of a human woman. Thelnara had seen pictures in historical archives, but seeing a living human made her realize how inadequate those images had been. The woman wore a uniform of deep blue and black, simple and practical. Her skin was darker than Thelnara remembered from the old records, and her eyes held a strange quality, as if they could see through the display itself. "Greetings to the Galactic Council," the woman said, her voice clear and steady. "My name is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Crucible Fleet, commanding the vessel Odysseus. On behalf of humanity, I bring you this message. We have returned. We wish to talk." The transmission ended, leaving the ambassadors staring at empty air. Commander Vraltok slammed his armored fist on the table. "This is a trick. Some species attempting to..." Genetic scan confirms human DNA markers, the technician interrupted. Linguistic analysis matches old Terran standard. Sirs, that's really a human. Chaos erupted in the chamber. 3 ambassadors tried to speak at once while others shouted into their personal communicators, alerting their home worlds. Thelnara sat quietly, her mind racing. Humanity had survived. But how? And what did they want? Zax then activated his override, and silence fell. We need information. Pull all historical records on humanity, everything from before the war, and someone find out what happened 300 years ago. I want the truth, not the official story. Over the next hour, as the council reconvened in emergency session, the pieces came together. Thelnara reviewed the files on her personal display, her heart sinking with each new detail. The human Kresh War had been brutal. Humanity had claimed territory the Kresh wanted, and when negotiations failed, the Kresh struck. But humans had fought back with terrifying creativity. Outnumbered 10-1, they had developed new tactics, new weapons, and new strategies faster than anyone thought possible. The Kresh had expected a quick victory. Instead, the war dragged on for 40 years. Worlds burned, billions died. Then suddenly the humans had gone silent. Their colonies were found abandoned, their fleets vanished, and Earth itself went dark. The Council had sent investigation teams that reported the Sol system was lifeless, its planets scarred by orbital bombardment. Case closed. Humanity was gone. Except they weren't gone. They had been hiding, preparing, and now they were back. The vessel is requesting permission to dock, reported Station Commander Pelthar. They say Captain Chen wishes to address the Council in person. Absolutely not, Vraltok growled. This could be an attack. We should mobilize the fleet immediately. And start a war based on fear? Thelnara found herself speaking before she realized it. All eyes turned to her. They came here unarmed. They asked to talk. If we respond with violence, we prove ourselves to be exactly what we claim not to be. The Sivith always were soft, Vraltok sneered. The Sivith have survived for 10,000 years by knowing when to fight and when to listen, Thelnara replied coolly. I suggest we try the latter first. Zax then considered for a long moment. Agreed. Grant them docking permission. Security teams will be on full alert. If this Captain Chen makes any hostile move, we will respond appropriately. The Odysseus docked with Velkara an hour later. Thelnara watched the security feeds as the airlock cycled open. A dozen figures emerged, all human, all wearing the same blue and black uniforms. They moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single organism. Captain Chen led them, her expression neutral and unreadable. The journey through the station drew crowds. Council staff pressed against windows and barriers to catch a glimpse of the returned humans. Some showed curiosity, others fear. Thelnara noticed that the humans never reacted, never even glanced at the onlookers. They simply walked with quiet purpose toward the council chamber. When Captain Chen entered the chamber, Thelnara got her first good look at the woman in person. There was something different about her, something that didn't show up on the video transmission. Her movements were too precise, too controlled. When she turned her head, Thelnara caught a glimpse of something behind her ear, a faint shimmer like circuit pathways just beneath the skin. They had changed themselves. The realization hit Thelnara like a physical blow. Whatever humanity had become during their 300-year absence, they were no longer quite the same species that had fled the galaxy. Thank you for seeing us, Captain Chen said, standing at the center of the chamber. She didn't sit in the empty chair provided. I know our return comes as a shock. I'll try to explain. Explain why you disappeared? Zax then asked. Or explain why you've returned now? Both, Chen replied. 300 years ago, humanity faced extinction. The Kresh Dominion attacked our colonies without warning or provocation. We fought back, but we were losing. Earth itself came under bombardment. Billions died in the first year alone. Vraltok interrupted. The Kresh acted within their rights. Humanity refused to recognize established territorial claims. The Kresh wanted our colony worlds because they contained rare elements, Chen said, her voice never rising but somehow cutting through Vraltok's words like a blade. The territorial claims were fabricated after the war started. We know because we've spent 300 years reviewing every communication, every document, every piece of evidence. We know the truth. The chamber fell silent. Thelnara noticed Chen's eyes had shifted, becoming darker, more intense. Was that technology or biology? Chen continued. We realized we couldn't win, not with our current technology and numbers. So humanity made a choice. We gathered every ship, every person we could save, and we fled. Not to surrender, but to survive. We went beyond the galactic rim, into dark space where no one would follow. And there, we rebuilt. She activated a holographic projector on her wrist. Images filled the air above the council table. Massive ships, each one capable of housing millions. Habitats built from asteroids and planetoids. Technologies that made Thelnara's mind hurt trying to understand them. We became something new, Chen said softly. We had to. We integrated AI into our neural networks. We modified our genetics to survive in environments that would kill baseline humans. We built quantum computers that could predict outcomes before they happened. We harnessed energies your science says are impossible to control. Why return now? Thelnara asked, unable to contain her curiosity. You survived. You were safe. Why risk coming back? Chen turned to look directly at her, and Thelnara saw something that surprised her. Pain. Deep, aching pain that no amount of technology could erase. Because Sol is our home, Chen said simply. Because Earth, despite all the damage, is where we came from. Because we've spent 300 years in exile, and we're tired of running. We've returned to reclaim what was always ours. Unacceptable. Vraltok stood, his armor powered up with a threatening hum. The Sol system was declared abandoned territory 100 years ago. It falls under Kresh jurisdiction now. You have no legal claim. We have the only claim that matters, Chen interrupted, and now her voice carried an edge of steel. We're standing here. Our fleet is in your space, and we're not asking for permission. The chamber erupted. Ambassadors shouted, some in fear, some in outrage. Security teams moved to surround the humans, weapons ready. But Captain Chen and her crew remained perfectly still, unthreatening but unafraid. Thelnara watched in horror as the situation spiraled toward violence. Then Chen did something unexpected. She smiled. Before anyone does something regrettable, Chen said, her voice somehow carrying over the chaos, let me share something with you. She touched her wrist again, and every screen in the chamber, every personal device, every holographic display simultaneously activated. Files appeared, thousands of them, all marked with official council security seals. While we were away, we watched you, Chen explained. We monitored every transmission, every communication, every supposedly secure channel. We know about the Juvex plague that wasn't natural. We know about the Mila genocide. We know about the trade consortium bribes, the weapons smuggling, the treaty violations. We know all of it. Thelnara's blood ran cold as she scanned the files appearing on her own display. There were secrets here that could topple governments, that could restart wars, that could tear the council apart. We're not here for revenge, Chen said, her voice softer now. We're here to come home. But make no mistake, we will never again be victims. We will never again be driven from our homes. If you want war, we will show you what 300 years of desperate innovation has created. Or you can accept that the galaxy has changed, and we can work together to build something better. She looked around the chamber, meeting each ambassador's eyes in turn. The choice is yours. You have 48 hours to decide. With that, Captain Chen and her crew turned and walked out of the chamber. No one stopped them. No one dared. In the silence that followed, Thelnara looked at the files still displayed across her screen. Her own people's secrets were there too. Smaller than some, but still damaging. Humanity had returned, and they held power far beyond military might. They held the truth. Across the galaxy, markets crashed as news of humanity's return spread. Trade routes were re-evaluated, alliances were questioned, and in the Sol system, ignored for 300 years, a Dyson swarm hummed with power around the sun, ready to fuel whatever came next. The galaxy had moved on without humanity, but humanity had never forgotten the galaxy. And now, the consequences of that return were only beginning to unfold. The observation deck of Velkara Station had never been so crowded. Thousands of beings from dozens of species pressed against the reinforced windows, staring out at the human ship Odysseus. It hung there in space like a patient predator, its organic metallic hull pulsing with strange blue light. Smaller ships moved around it in perfect formation, too precise to be piloted by individuals. They moved like a school of fish, like a single living thing. Ambassador Thelnara stood apart from the crowd, her tablet displaying hundreds of intelligence reports flooding in from across the galaxy. Every major power was scrambling to understand what humanity had become. Ancient databases were being accessed, old war records examined, and psychological profiles of the species created from outdated information. But Thelnara suspected none of it would be useful. The humans who left 300 years ago were not the same as the humans who had returned. Captain Chen had agreed to a second meeting, this time in a smaller conference room with only 5 ambassadors present. Thelnara had been chosen to represent the Sivith, partly because of her earlier call for calm, and partly because her species was considered neutral. The others were Zack's then, Commander Vraltok, who had insisted on attending, and 2 ambassadors from minor species who were deemed less threatening. When Chen arrived, she came alone. That surprised Thelnara. Every other species always brought advisors, bodyguards, and assistants. But Chen walked in by herself, carrying nothing but confidence. "Thank you for the smaller venue," Chen said, sitting down smoothly. "Crowds make data processing more difficult." "Data processing?" asked Ambassador Hiresh of the Telman Unity. "I don't understand." Chen tilted her head slightly, and Thelnara saw those circuit-like patterns beneath her skin pulse with light. "I'm currently maintaining quantum-encrypted connections with 417 other human minds across our fleet. We're sharing sensory input, tactical analysis, and historical data in real time. Large gatherings create a lot of stimuli to filter." The room went very quiet. Thelnara felt her fur rise again. "You're connected to each other?" "Neural integration," Chen explained calmly. "It was one of the first modifications we made after leaving the galactic rim. When you're isolated in deep space, communication becomes vital. We developed technology that allows us to share thoughts, memories, and experiences directly, not all the time and not without consent, but when needed, yes, we're connected." "That's not possible," Vraltok said flatly. "Neural interfaces have been attempted by every major species. The processing power required to link even 2 minds would require quantum computing integrated at the cellular level," Chen finished. "Yes, we developed that about 200 years ago. It took us a century to perfect. But when your survival depends on coordination, you find ways." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at her ship. "You want to know what we became out there? I'll tell you. But I need you to understand something first. Every choice we made, every modification, every technology we developed, it all came from necessity. We didn't evolve because we wanted to. We evolved because extinction was the alternative." Thelnara activated her recorder. This needed to be documented. Tell us, what happened after you left? Chen's expression softened, becoming distant, as if she was seeing something far away. The exodus was chaos. We managed to evacuate 4 billion people from Earth and the colonies, but we lost twice that many. The ships we had were never designed for long-term habitation. People were crammed into cargo holds, living in environmental suits, because we didn't have enough life support. Children died, the elderly died, the sick died. For the first 10 years, we lost 10,000 people every day to disease, accidents, and despair. But you survived, Hiresh said softly. Barely. Chen turned back to face them. We reached the dark space beyond the galactic rim, regions where no stars exist, only rogue planets and dead matter. We set up on a frozen world orbiting a brown dwarf. We called it Hope, because that's all we had left. And there, we had to make terrible choices. She touched her wrist, and holographic images appeared above the table. Thelnara saw humans in the images, but they looked different. Some had extra limbs. Others had scaled skin or enhanced sensory organs. Some barely looked human at all. We started with the children, Chen continued. We modified their genes to handle radiation better, to process different atmospheres, to survive in cold that would freeze standard biology. It was controversial. Many called it unethical. But when children were dying by the thousands, ethics became a luxury we couldn't afford. The images shifted, showing massive construction projects, asteroids being hollowed out and converted into habitats, ships being grown rather than built, using some kind of organic technology. We developed biotechnology that could create structures from raw materials. We integrated AI into our infrastructure, creating ships that could repair themselves, that could adapt to threats. And yes, we integrated that same technology into ourselves. Vraltok leaned forward, his armor creaking. You turned yourselves into machines. We turned ourselves into survivors, Chen corrected. We're still human. We still feel, still love, still dream. But we're also more than what we were. We can process information faster. We can coordinate without speaking. We can survive in environments that would kill baseline humans. We had to become this, or we would have died in that frozen darkness. How many of you are there? Zaxa then asked. The question everyone wanted answered. Currently, the human population stands at 214 billion individuals. Chen said it casually, as if it wasn't a staggering number. We live on 17,000 habitat stations, 843 converted planetoids, and 672 nomadic fleet clusters. Our territory in dark space covers a volume roughly twice the size of council space. The room erupted in shocked exclamations. 200 billion? That was more than the total population of the 3 largest council species combined. Impossible, Vraltok said. The resources alone. Would be impossible using your technology, Chen agreed. But we developed matter reclamation systems that can break down any material to its atomic components and rebuild it into whatever we need. We developed fusion systems that make energy almost free. We developed agricultural technologies that can grow food anywhere. When you spend 300 years with no external support, you learn to make the most of what you have. Thelnara's mind was reeling. This wasn't just a return. This was the emergence of a superpower that had been growing in secret for 3 centuries. Why didn't you contact us earlier? Hiresh asked. If you had all this, why stay hidden? Because we were afraid, Chen said simply, and for the first time, Thelnara heard real emotion in her voice. We were traumatized, an entire species suffering from collective PTSD. We watched our worlds burn, watched our children die, watched everything we built get destroyed. So yes, we hid, we healed, we grew, and we debated endlessly whether we should ever come back. What changed? Thelnara asked softly. Chen met her eyes. Time. Generations passed. The people who fled the galaxy are mostly gone now, either dead or uploaded into digital consciousness. The new generations, those born in exile, they don't remember the fear. They only know that somewhere out there is a place called Earth, and it's their birthright. They want to go home. She walked back to the table and placed both hands on its surface. But there's more. We've been monitoring your communications for decades. We've watched the Kresh Dominion grow more aggressive. We've seen minor species oppressed. We've observed the Council becoming corrupt, more interested in maintaining power than pursuing justice. We realized that if we stayed hidden, if we remained silent, we would be abandoning the galaxy to repeat the same mistakes that drove us away. So this is about justice? Vraltok's voice dripped with skepticism. You expect us to believe you've returned as saviors? No, Chen said flatly. We've returned because Sul is ours, and we will reclaim it. But we're also offering a choice. Work with us, and we'll share what we've learned. Medical technology that can extend lifespans. Energy systems that eliminate resource scarcity. Agricultural methods that end hunger. We can help the galaxy become better. And if we refuse? Zax then asked. Chen's expression hardened. Then we take what's ours and you leave us alone. But know this, we will enforce our borders, we will protect ourselves, and we will respond to any threat with overwhelming force. We learned that lesson well. Thelnara noticed something in the way Chen spoke. There was pain there, yes, but also steel. Humanity had been forged in exile, hammered by suffering, and what emerged was something both beautiful and terrifying. Show us, Thelnara heard herself say. Show us what you can do. Not as a threat, but as proof. Let us see this technology firsthand. Chen considered for a moment, then nodded. Agreed. But not here. Come to the Odysseus. See what we've built. Then make your decision with full information. 2 hours later, Thelnara found herself in a shuttle with 3 other ambassadors, approaching the massive human ship. Up close, the Odysseus was even more impressive. Its hull wasn't just metal, it was a living ecosystem of technology and organic matter, constantly shifting and adapting. They docked, and the airlock opened to reveal a corridor that took Thelnara's breath away. The walls glowed with soft bioluminescent light. The floor felt warm and slightly yielding, like walking on living tissue. And everywhere she saw humans moving with that same eerie coordination. Chen led them through the ship, explaining as they walked. The Odysseus is a generation ship designed to house 3 million people indefinitely. It's also a warship, a factory, and a mobile city. The hull is biomechanical, capable of self-repair. The power system draws from quantum vacuum energy, and the ship's AI is integrated with the crew. They entered what appeared to be a medical facility. A human doctor demonstrated their healing technology, using a device that could knit broken bones in minutes and cure diseases that Council medicine considered terminal. Thelnara watched in amazement as cellular regeneration happened before her eyes. Next came the manufacturing deck, where matter itself seemed to flow like water, being shaped into tools, parts, and equipment through some process Thelnara couldn't understand. Chen explained it was quantum manipulation, rearranging atoms at will, but it was the final stop that truly shocked them. Chen brought them to what she called the memory archive. It was a vast chamber filled with crystalline structures, each one glowing with internal light. This is our history, Chen said quietly. Every human who died during the Exodus, we preserved their memories, their personalities, their very essence in digital form. They live on in here, and we can interact with them, learn from them, remember who we were. Thelnara approached one of the crystals and gasped as a holographic figure appeared. An elderly human man, smiling warmly. Hello, the figure said. I'm James Chen, Sarah's great-great-grandfather. I died in the 3rd year of exile, but I'm still here in a way. It's nice to meet you, Ambassador. He's alive? Thelnara whispered. In a manner of speaking, Captain Chen replied. His consciousness was uploaded before his body failed. He exists as pure information now, but he's still him. We call them the Eternal. They guide us, teach us, and remind us of our past. As they returned to the shuttle hours later, Thelnara's mind was overwhelmed. Humanity hadn't just survived. They had transcended many of the limits that held other species back. They had become something new while somehow remaining fundamentally human. Back on Velkara, emergency council sessions raged. Some species wanted to negotiate immediately. Others called for military action. The Kresh Dominion was mobilizing its fleets, convinced that a preemptive strike was necessary. Thelnara reported everything she had seen, but she could tell many didn't believe her. How could they? It was too much, too advanced, too impossible. That night, as she prepared to rest, her communicator activated. Captain Chen's face appeared on the screen. Ambassador Thelnara, I wanted to thank you personally for being willing to see us as we are, not as you feared we might be. I'm not sure I understand what I saw, Thelnara admitted. Your people have become something extraordinary. We became what we needed to be, Chen replied. But we're still learning what that means. The galaxy changed while we were gone, but we changed too. Now we need to find a way to coexist. What if we can't? Thelnara asked. What if fear wins? Chen was quiet for a moment. Then we'll survive, as we always have. But the galaxy will be poorer for it. We have so much to share, so much we've learned. It would be a tragedy to waste it on conflict. After Chen disconnected, Thelnara stood at her window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in dark space beyond the rim, humanity had built an empire in exile. And now they had returned, bringing with them technologies and capabilities that could reshape everything. The consequences were only beginning. Tomorrow, the Kresh fleet would arrive in Sol system, and the galaxy would discover just how much humanity had truly changed. High Commander Krelvax of the Kresh Dominion stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, and watched his armada assemble. 10,000 warships, the largest fleet ever gathered by the Dominion, spread across space in perfect military formation. Each vessel bristled with weapons, shields humming with power. This was the might that had kept the galaxy in check for 300 years. All ships report ready, High Commander, his tactical officer announced. The fleet is prepared to jump to Sol system on your command. Krelvax flexed his clawed hands inside his command armor. The Council had wasted time with talk and negotiations, but the Dominion understood reality. Power mattered. The humans thought they could simply return and reclaim what was no longer theirs. They needed to be reminded that the galaxy had moved on without them. Commander Vraltak's intelligence reports suggest the humans have significant technological advantages, his strategic advisor cautioned. Perhaps we should wait for... We've waited long enough, Krelvax interrupted. Every day we delay, the humans entrench themselves further. They have, 100 ships? Maybe 200? We have 10,000. The mathematics are simple. He activated the fleet-wide communication. Warriors of the Dominion, today we reclaim what is rightfully ours. The Sol system will remain Kresh territory. Any human presence will be eliminated. For the Dominion. The response thundered back from 10,000 ships. For the Dominion. Jump coordinates locked, the navigation officer reported. Sol system, inner orbit. Execute. Space tore open in 10,000 places simultaneously as the Kresh armada entered hyperspace. The journey would take only minutes. Krelvax felt his pulse quicken with anticipation. This would be a victory that secured his legacy. The aliens who dared challenge Kresh supremacy would be crushed, and the galaxy would remember that the Dominion's word was law. The ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, weapons hot and ready to fire, and then every sensor on every ship screamed warnings that made no sense. "Report!" Krelvax barked, staring at the displays that showed impossible readings. His tactical officer's voice shook. "Sir, the system is fully inhabited. I'm detecting millions of structures, orbital platforms, habitat stations, defensive installations, and the sun, sir. The sun is partially enclosed." Krelvax looked at the main view screen and felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. Sol System had been transformed into something out of a nightmare or a dream, depending on your perspective. The sun was partially wrapped in what could only be a Dyson swarm, millions of solar collectors drinking energy from the star. Planets had been dismantled, their matter converted into ring habitats and orbital megastructures. And everywhere, there were defensive platforms. "How many?" Krelvax asked quietly. "Sir, we're counting over 3 million independent defensive installations. Each one is broadcasting power signatures equivalent to a council destroyer. And that's not counting the mobile fleet." "Mobile fleet?" The sensor officer's voice cracked. "Sir, we're detecting 2,000 ships, capital class or larger, but they're not like anything in our database. The designs they're organic. The ships are alive." On the screen, the human vessels began to move. They didn't fly like normal ships. They flowed through space like predators made of metal and flesh, their hulls pulsing with that strange blue light. And behind them, clouds of smaller craft, thousands upon thousands, moving in perfect synchronization. A transmission cut through all frequencies. Captain Sarah Chen's face appeared on every screen in the Kresh fleet. "Kresh Armada, you have entered Terran space without authorization. This is a violation of sovereign territory. You have 60 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted to designated holding areas. Failure to comply will be considered an act of war." Krelvax snarled. "Holding areas?" She expected the Dominion fleet to surrender? "All ships, target the largest human vessels. Fire on my command." "High Commander, perhaps we should—" "Fire!" 10,000 Kresh warships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams, missiles, and kinetic weapons filled space with deadly light. It was enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. It should have been enough to obliterate any fleet. The human ships didn't even try to dodge. The weapons struck their hulls and simply vanished, absorbed into the organic metal like water into sand. Not a single ship showed damage. "Impossible," Krelvax whispered. Captain Chen's expression hadn't changed. "You were warned. 60 seconds have elapsed. Terran Defense Network, you are authorized to respond." The defensive platforms activated, and space turned into hell. Beams of coherent gravity lanced out from the platforms, not destroying Kresh ships, but crushing them. Hulls crumpled like paper as gravitational forces compressed them into spheres of twisted metal. Ships simply ceased to exist, not exploding but being erased, their very matter converted to energy and dissipated. The human mobile fleet engaged with weapons Krelvax had never imagined, missiles that seemed to phase through shields and appear inside enemy ships before detonating, drones that moved faster than sensors could track, cutting through armor with beams of pure energy, and something else, something that looked like tears in space itself, appearing near clusters of Kresh ships and swallowing them whole. "Evasive maneuvers," Krelvax ordered, but it was useless. His ships were designed to fight enemies who followed the same principles of warfare. The humans fought like nothing he'd ever encountered. A drone swarm descended on his own flagship. Point defense systems fired frantically, but for every drone destroyed, 2 more appeared. They attached to the hull and began cutting through armor like it was paper. "Hull breaches on decks 17 through 32, Damage Control reported. "We're being boarded by autonomous units. The transmission ended in static. On his tactical display, Krelvax watched his fleet die. Ships exploded, were crushed, or simply went dark as human boarding drones disabled their systems. In 6 minutes, he'd lost over 3,000 ships. In 8 minutes, it was 5,000. The humans moved with mechanical precision, targeting key vessels, breaking formations, and cutting off retreat vectors. "All ships retreat," Krelvax ordered. "Emergency jump any vector. Just get us out of here." But the humans had already anticipated that. The tiers in space that had swallowed so many ships now appeared along every escape route. Ships that tried to enter hyperspace found their drives disabled by some kind of quantum interference. They were trapped. "Hi, Commander. We're receiving a transmission," his communication officer said. It's being sent directly into our neural implants. All of us. The entire fleet." Captain Chen's voice filled Krelvax's mind, not through his ears but directly into his consciousness. It was intimate and terrifying. "Hi, Commander Krelvax. You attacked without provocation. You ignored our warning. Now you will face the consequences. Stand down immediately, or we will be forced to destroy your entire fleet." "How are you doing this?" Krelvax demanded aloud, knowing somehow she could hear him. "Neural communication technology," Chen's voice replied in his mind. "We're speaking directly to your brain. Surrender now. You have 10 seconds. Krelvax looked at his tactical display. He had come with 10,000 ships. In 11 minutes, only 4,000 remained functional. The humans hadn't even deployed their full fleet. Most of those 2,000 capital ships were still waiting, untouched and ready. This wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. "All ships," Krelvax said, his voice heavy with defeat. "Power down weapons. Prepare to be boarded. The engagement is over." The human attack stopped instantly. The drones withdrew, the gravitational weapons ceased, and the human fleet moved into escort positions around the battered Kresh armada. Krelvax watched as human boarding craft attached to his flagship. When the airlock opened, a human woman entered, not Captain Chen, but someone who looked similar, with the same modified features and circuit patterns beneath her skin. "Hi, Commander Krelvax," she said formally. "I am Commander Lisa Park of the Terran Defense Force. Your fleet is now under Terran custody. You will be held until diplomatic arrangements can be made for your return to Kresh space." "You defeated us in 11 minutes, Krelvax said, still trying to process what had happened. "How?" Commander Park's expression was neutral, but not unkind. "You attacked using 300-year-old tactics against an enemy who spent 300 years preparing for exactly this scenario. Your ships are powerful, High Commander, but they were designed to fight conventional threats. We are not conventional." She gestured for him to follow. "Come. You'll be treated well. We don't seek revenge, only security." As Krelvax was led through his own ship, now occupied by human forces, he saw the drones up close. They moved with insect-like precision, each one controlled by the fleet's integrated AI. They weren't just machines. They were extensions of the human will, thousands of weapons guided by hundreds of linked minds. The humans had won because they had become something the galaxy had never encountered. They had integrated themselves with their technology so completely that the line between soldier and weapon, between ship and crew, had ceased to exist. They were a collective intelligence that could react faster, coordinate better, and adapt more quickly than any traditional military force. Over the following days, as the captured Kresh fleet was processed and secured, the full scope of humanity's transformation became clear. They allowed Krelvax to communicate with the Dominion Council to report what had happened, and they made certain everyone knew what had transpired. Captain Chen broadcast a message across the entire galaxy, using communication systems no one knew existed. She appeared on screens in every major city, every council chamber, every military headquarters, and she showed them the battle. "This is what happened when the Kresh Dominion attacked Terran space." Her voice was calm, almost gentle. We gave warning. It was ignored. We offered a chance to withdraw. It was refused. So we defended ourselves. The footage showed the battle from multiple angles, including from inside Kresh ships as they were overwhelmed. It was brutal, efficient, and utterly one-sided. Let this be understood by all species in the galaxy, Chen continued. The Sol system and a buffer zone of 50 light-years around it is now Terran space. This territory includes 3 former Council trade hubs, which will be returned to neutral administration within 1 standard year. Any species may travel through Terran space freely, provided they respect our laws and our sovereignty. She paused, and her expression hardened. But any military force that enters our territory without permission will face the same response the Kresh fleet received. We do not seek conflict, but we will not hesitate to defend ourselves. We learned that lesson at great cost, and we will never forget it. The transmission ended with coordinates for diplomatic contact and a list of technologies humanity was willing to share with peaceful species. Medical advances, agricultural improvements, and clean energy systems. The carrot and the stick offered simultaneously. Ambassador Thelnara watched the broadcast from her quarters on Velkara and felt her world shift. The balance of power that had existed for 3 centuries had just been shattered. The Kresh dominion, which everyone feared, had been humbled in minutes, and humanity had barely exerted itself to do it. Her communicator buzzed. It was the Council, calling an emergency session. She already knew what would be discussed. Some would call for alliance with humanity. Others would demand the galaxy unite against this new threat. And a few would realize what Thelnara already understood. The galaxy had no choice but to adapt. Humanity had returned, and they had returned with power beyond anything the Council could match. The only question now was whether the galaxy would work with them or against them. Thelnara thought of the eternal in humanity's memory archive, the consciousness of those who had died in exile. They had suffered so much, lost so much, and their descendants had built something extraordinary from that suffering. She made her decision. The Sivith would reach out to humanity, would seek alliance and friendship, because she understood something many others didn't. The humans weren't conquerors. They were survivors. And if the galaxy gave them a chance, they might just help everyone else survive, too. In Sol system, as the last of the Kresh prisoners were transported to holding facilities, Captain Chen stood on the observation deck of the Odysseus and looked at Earth. It was still scarred, still damaged, but it was home, and now, finally, it was theirs again. "Ma'am," Commander Park approached, "the Council is requesting a formal meeting. They want to discuss terms for peace." "Tell them we'll meet," Chen replied. "But on our terms, in our space. They need to understand that we're not asking for acceptance. We're offering partnership." She turned to face Park. "How many ships did we lose?" "None, ma'am. Light damage to 37 vessels, all repairable. No casualties." Chen nodded slowly. The victory was complete, overwhelming, and terrifying to everyone who witnessed it. Which was exactly the point. Humanity had been the victim once, never again. But as she looked at Earth, she thought of all those who had died to bring them to this moment. The billions who never made it off the dying colonies. The millions who perished during the Exodus. The generations who lived and died in exile, never seeing the home they dreamed of. This victory was for them. And whatever came next, humanity would face it as they had faced everything else, together, adapted, and utterly unwilling to surrender. The explosion on Velkara Station killed 374 people. It happened during shift change, when the main transit hub was most crowded. The blast tore through 3 decks, venting atmosphere and sending debris spinning into space. Rescue operations took 6 hours, and by the end, The casualty count had risen to 412. Ambassador Thelnara stood in the ruined transit hub 2 days later, wearing an environmental suit, surveying the damage. Scorch marks covered the walls. Blood had frozen in the vacuum, dark crystals clinging to twisted metal. And everywhere, the signs pointed to one conclusion. This was not an accident. This was murder. The explosive was quantum catalyzed, the Civith investigator explained, his voice crackling over the suit radio. The signature is unmistakable. Only one species has that technology. Humans, Thelnara said quietly. Yes, Ambassador. The device used principles that only Terran science has demonstrated. Whoever did this wanted us to know it was them. Thelnara felt sick. 2 weeks had passed since the Kresh fleet's defeat. 2 weeks of tentative negotiations and careful diplomacy. Several species had reached out to humanity, seeking trade agreements and technology exchanges. The galaxy was slowly accepting that the humans were here to stay. And now this. The attacks didn't stop at Velcara. Over the next 3 days, 5 more incidents occurred across Council space. A Kresh military supply depot vaporized in an explosion that left no trace. A council senator assassinated by a weapon that stopped her hearts without leaving a mark. A cargo convoy simply disappeared between star systems, their last transmission showing a ship that matched human design. Each incident showed signs of human technology. Each attack seemed designed to terrorize and destabilize, and with each one, the calls for action against humanity grew louder. Captain Sarah Chen appeared before an emergency council session 5 days after the first attack. Her expression was grave as she faced the assembled ambassadors. The Terran government categorically denies any involvement in these attacks, she stated firmly. We have launched our own investigation and will share all findings with this body. These acts are not sanctioned by humanity and do not represent our intentions. How convenient, Commander Vraltok, recently returned from his humiliating defeat, growled. Your technology, your methods, but not your responsibility? Our technology, yes, Chen admitted, but not our authorization. We believe rogue elements have stolen or replicated our weapon systems. Rogue elements? Ambassador Zax then leaned forward. You're telling us that someone within humanity is conducting terrorist attacks, and you have no control over them. Chen's jaw tightened. We're investigating. I need time to... The chamber's alarm screamed. Security feeds showed the council archives, 3 levels below, engulfed in flames. An explosion had detonated in the heart of the station's data storage, destroying centuries of diplomatic records. And on every screen, a message appeared in stark white text against black. The galaxy watched while Earth burned. Now you'll understand what that feels like. This is only the beginning. The remembrance. Thelnara watched Chen's face go pale. The captain knew something she hadn't shared. Captain Chen, Thelnara said carefully, what is the remembrance? Chen closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them, pain filled her gaze. A faction within humanity. They don't agree with our approach to reintegration. Explain, Zax then demanded. When we were in exile, debating whether to return, there were 2 schools of thought. One believed we should come back and try to build peace, to share what we'd learned and create something better. That's the majority, the official position of the Terran government. She paused, visibly struggling with what to say next. The other faction believed the galaxy owed us a debt of blood. They argued that you all stood by while we were slaughtered, while our worlds burned, while our children died. They wanted to return not as friends but as conquerors, as judges. And you didn't think to mention this before? Vraltok's voice dripped with accusation. We thought we had contained them, Chen said, her voice tight. The remembrance was a small group, maybe a few thousand people out of 200 billion. They were monitored, watched, kept away from positions of power. But clearly, they were more organized than we realized. Another message appeared on the screens. This one included footage of the Velkara bombing, shown from an angle that proved the perpetrator had been there, recording. And at the end, a manifesto written in Old Terran Standard. "We are the remembrance. We remember Earth burning while the galaxy did nothing. We remember children starving while the Council debated trade agreements. We remember 300 years of exile, of suffering, of death. You taught us that mercy is weakness, that compassion is for fools. Now we will teach you the same lesson. Every species that stood silent while humanity died will pay in blood. This is justice. This is what you created." The transmission ended with coordinates, a challenge, demanding that humanity hunt them down if they dared. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Species representatives screamed accusations at Chen, at each other, at anyone who would listen. Security teams rushed in, fearing another attack. And through it all, Thelnara watched Chen's face and saw something that surprised her. Doubt. The captain doubted her own position. Later, in a private meeting Thelnara had requested, she confronted Chen directly. They met in a secured room, just the two of them, without recording devices or witnesses. "You understand them, don't you?" Thelnara asked. "The remembrance. Part of you agrees with them." Chen sat heavily in her chair, her composure cracking. "My parents died in the Exodus, my sister, my cousins. I was 6 years old when I watched Earth burn from the window of an evacuation ship. So yes, Ambassador, part of me understands their rage." "But you chose peace anyway. Why?" "Because rage is easy," Chen said, her voice raw. "Hatred is simple. Revenge feels justified, but it's also endless. If we punish the galaxy for what happened 300 years ago, then some other species will seek revenge on us 100 years from now. The cycle never stops unless someone chooses to break it." Thelnara sat across from her. "Tell me the truth, Captain. Can you stop them? The remembrance?" "I don't know," Chen admitted. "They have access to our technology, our weapons. They're humans, which means they're enhanced, integrated, and connected. They can think as fast as I can, coordinate as efficiently as any of us. And worse, they have support. Not a lot, but some. There are humans who lost too much, who hurt too deeply, who can't let go of the past." "How many?" Chen pulled up a holographic display showing population data. "We estimate maybe 10,000 active members, with another 100,000 sympathizers who won't act but won't turn them in either. Out of 200 billion, that's nothing. But with our technology, 10,000 determined people can cause catastrophic damage." Over the following days, the attacks escalated. A mining colony on the edge of Council space was found abandoned, its population of 20,000 simply gone. A medical supply ship exploded in orbit over a Kresh world, raining debris onto population centers below. And each attack came with the same message. Remember Earth. Remember what you did. Remember what you are owed. Chen threw herself into the investigation, and Thelnara worked alongside her. The Sivith ambassador had realized something important. This wasn't just humanity's problem anymore. The remembrance threatened everyone, and stopping them required cooperation. They discovered the remembrance had been planning this for decades, quietly stockpiling weapons and resources while the main human population focused on peaceful reintegration. They had infiltrated human settlements, hidden facilities, and even compromised some of the quantum communication networks. "They're ghosts," Chen said in frustration, reviewing another failed lead. "They move like we do, think like we do, hide where we'd hide. It's like hunting ourselves." Thelnara reviewed the manifesto again, looking for clues. "They keep talking about justice, about what's owed. Captain, during your exile, did anyone help humanity? Did any species reach out?" Chen looked at her strangely. "Why do you ask?" "Because if someone did, If anyone showed humanity kindness during those dark times, then maybe the remembrance isn't completely consumed by hatred. Maybe there's something we can use to reach them. Chen was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "There was one incident. About 100 years into exile. We were dying, running out of medical supplies. Children were sick with a plague we couldn't cure. A ship appeared, Civith design, carrying medicine. No identification, no message, just the medicine, and then they left." Thelnara felt her heart's race. That was us. My people. I didn't know the details, but I found reference to an unauthorized relief mission in our historical records. Our government denied it officially, but someone went anyway. "Your people saved thousands of human children," Chen said softly. "We never knew who to thank." "Use that," Thelnara urged. "Remind the remembrance that not everyone abandoned humanity. Remind them that mercy still exists, that kindness is possible." But before they could act on this revelation, another attack struck. This time it hit close to home. The human settlement of New Hope, one of humanity's first permanent habitats in exile, was bombed. 5,000 humans died, killed by their own people using their own weapons. And the message from the remembrance was chilling. Even we must be purged of weakness. Those who seek peace with our tormentors are traitors to the dead. Chen received a private communication that night. It was a voice she knew, a face she recognized. Marcus Webb, an old friend from her academy days, now revealed as the leader of the remembrance. "Sarah," he said, his voice tired but determined, "I'm sorry it came to this, but you've lost your way. You're so desperate for acceptance that you've forgotten what they did to us." "Marcus, please," Chen begged, her composure finally breaking. "This isn't justice. This is just more death." "It's the only language they understand," Marcus replied. 300 years ago, they could have intervened. They could have stopped the creche. They had the power, the influence, the moral obligation, but they did nothing because it was convenient, because it was easier, because we didn't matter to them. "So you'll kill innocents? You'll become exactly what you claim to hate?" "I'll make them remember," Marcus said. "I'll make sure that never again will a species face extinction while the galaxy watches and does nothing. Fear will accomplish what compassion never could." The transmission ended, but Marcus had included coordinates. An invitation or a challenge, Chen couldn't tell which. She sat in the dark of her quarters for hours, wrestling with the decision. Then she activated her communication array and called together a team, not just humans, but volunteers from other species who wanted to stop the remembrance, including Ambassador Thelnara, who insisted on coming despite the danger. "This is our fight too," Thelnara said firmly. "The remembrance threatens everyone. And besides, someone needs to witness what humanity does when faced with the worst of itself." Chen assembled a strike force of 3 ships, all volunteers, all knowing they might not return. Because the coordinates Marcus had sent led to a hidden shipyard in deep space, and intelligence suggested the remembrance was building something there. Something terrible. As they prepared to depart, Chen received one more message. It was from the Eternal, from the uploaded consciousness of her great-great-grandfather, James Chen. "Sarah," his holographic form said gently, "I died in exile. I know the hatred, the rage, the desperate need for someone to pay for what was taken from us. But I also learned in those last days before my consciousness was preserved that carrying that hatred forward only ensures our real death, not of the body, but of the soul. Stop them, child. Not for the galaxy, but for us, for humanity. Prove that we're more than our trauma." Chen closed her eyes, feeling tears slip down her cheeks. Then she wiped them away, straightened her uniform, and walked to the bridge. It was time to face the remembrance. Time to face the darkest part of humanity's soul and decide, once and for all, what they would choose to be. The Remembrance's hidden shipyard existed in a region of space that officially didn't exist. Beyond the galactic rim, past even the darkest reaches humanity had claimed during exile, floating in absolute void between galaxies. Captain Sarah Chen's strike force of 3 ships approached it carefully, sensors straining against the darkness. "There," Commander Lisa Park indicated on the tactical display. "Quantum signatures. Something massive." The shipyard materialized on their screens like a nightmare taking form. It was huge, easily 10 kilometers across, and at its center sat an incomplete vessel that made Chen's blood run cold. The ship was designed like a spear, all forward thrust and concentrated power, and it radiated energy signatures that her enhanced mind immediately recognized. "That's a stellar ignition weapon," she whispered. "They're building a device to trigger supernovas." Ambassador Thelnara, standing beside Chen on the bridge, felt her fur stand on end. How many stars could it destroy? "If it works," Chen's voice was hollow, "dozens, maybe hundreds, enough to depopulate entire sectors." The communication system activated, and Marcus Webb's face appeared on screen. He looked older than Chen remembered, his features hardened by years of planning this moment. But his eyes still held a spark she recognized. The same idealism they'd shared as young officers, now twisted into something dark. "Sarah, you actually came. Part of me hoped you wouldn't. Marcus, shut down the shipyard. Whatever you're planning, it's not too late to stop." "Stop?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "We're past stopping, Sarah. We passed that point 300 years ago when Earth burned and the galaxy watched. This," he gestured to the massive weapon behind him, "this is the only guarantee that it never happens again. Once we demonstrate what we're capable of, once we destroy a few Kresh worlds, the galaxy will understand. Fear is the only universal language." "Fear is temporary," Chen argued. "It fades, and then all you have left is hatred breeding more hatred." "Marcus, I've read your manifesto. You talk about justice, about what's owed. But this isn't justice. This is genocide." "They taught us well, didn't they?" Marcus's smile was cold. "The Kresh showed us exactly how to treat threats to our existence. Now we're simply applying the lesson." Chen's tactical display showed movement. Ships were emerging from hidden docks around the shipyard. 50 vessels, all human design, all armed with the same advanced technology that had crushed the Kresh fleet. The Remembrance had built their own navy. "You don't have to do this," Chen tried again. "There's another way." "Show me," Marcus challenged. "Show me one reason why the galaxy deserves mercy, one act of kindness, one moment of compassion in our 300 years of suffering. Show me that, and I'll consider standing down." This was the moment Thelnara had been waiting for. She stepped forward, and Chen nodded, allowing her to speak. "The Sivith relief mission," Thelnara said clearly. 147 years ago, when plague threatened your children. We came. We brought medicine. We saved thousands of lives, asking nothing in return." Marcus's expression flickered with something, surprise or perhaps recognition. "The Phantom ship. We never knew who sent it." "My people did," Thelnara continued. "It was unauthorized, politically dangerous, and completely necessary, because some of us understood that watching others suffer when you have the power to help makes you complicit in that suffering. We failed humanity in many ways, Marcus Webb. But not everyone failed. Not always." "One ship," Marcus said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. "One act of kindness in 3 centuries of abandonment? One act is enough to prove that the galaxy isn't monolithic," Chen interjected. "That species are made of individuals, and individuals can choose compassion even when their governments choose indifference. Marcus, we can be better than what was done to us. We can choose to break the cycle. And if we do, if we show mercy..." Marcus's hands clenched. What guarantee do we have that in another century, another 1,000 years, it won't happen again? That some other species won't face what we faced while everyone looks away? No guarantee, Chen admitted. Except the one we create. Marcus, activate your quantum link. Connect with the fleet. Let them see what I'm seeing. Chen opened her neural interface, broadcasting her thoughts directly to Marcus and, through him, to every member of the Remembrance. She showed them her memories. The exodus from Earth, the children dying in the cargo holds, the years of desperate survival. But then she showed them what came after, the slow rebuilding, the technologies developed not for war but for survival, the communities that formed, the families that grew, the culture that evolved. She showed them new hope, the settlement the Remembrance had bombed and the people who died there. Humans who had survived the Exodus, who had lived through the darkest times, who had chosen peace despite everything, their faces, their stories, their deaths. They were us, Chen said softly. They remembered Earth burning just like you do, but they chose to build instead of destroy, and you killed them. You killed the very people you claim to represent. Marcus's face twisted with pain. They were weak. They forgot. They remembered, Chen countered. They just chose not to be defined by their trauma. That's not weakness, Marcus. That's the hardest kind of strength. The quantum link expanded as more Remembrance members connected, sharing thoughts and memories. Chen could feel them, thousands of minds linked in a network of rage and pain, but beneath that, something else. Doubt, uncertainty, grief. She reached out through the connection, not with words but with feeling. She shared her own struggle, her own moments of wanting revenge, of hating the galaxy for its indifference. And then she shared what changed her, the memory of her great-great-grandfather James in his final days, telling her that surviving wasn't enough. They had to survive as humans, not as monsters. We can choose, she broadcast to all of them. Right now, in this moment, we can choose what humanity becomes. Conquerors drunk on revenge, or survivors who learned something precious from their suffering. The galaxy failed us, but we don't have to fail ourselves. The Remembrance fleet remained motionless, weapons powered but not firing. Chen could feel the network of minds struggling with the decision. 300 years of pain and anger warred with something equally powerful. Hope. Then Marcus spoke, his voice heavy. Even if I wanted to stand down Sarah, I can't. The weapon is almost complete. Its fusion core is already active. If we try to shut it down now, it will detonate anyway. We'll trigger a stellar ignition right here. How long? Chen asked. 30 minutes. Maybe less. When the core reaches critical mass, it will destroy everything within 5 light years. Chen's mind raced through possibilities, her enhanced cognition processing options at inhuman speed. Evacuate. Get your people off the shipyard. We can contain the blast if we— No, Marcus interrupted. We built shielding into the weapon's design. Once it's armed, nothing can contain it. The physics are absolute. Then we'll move it. Jump it into deep space where it can't harm anyone. The jump drive is offline for final calibration. Sarah, this is it. This is where it ends. The only question is whether I die alone for my sins or whether I take you down with me for being too naive to see that the galaxy can't be saved. Thelnara stepped forward again. Neither option is acceptable. Captain Webb, you said you wanted the galaxy to never forget what happened to humanity. Here's how you accomplish that without genocide. Surrender, stand trial, tell your story to the entire galaxy, forced to listen because we'll have you in custody. Who would care? Marcus asked bitterly. I would, Thelnara said. And I'm not alone. The Sivith will advocate for a full historical review of humanity's treatment. Other species are already asking questions. Your attacks, as terrible as they've been, have done something useful. They've forced the galaxy to confront its complicity. Chen felt something shift in the quantum network. The Remembrance members were listening, really listening. maybe for the first time since they'd committed to this path. The truth matters, Thelnara continued. Your rage matters. Your pain matters. But it matters more if you live to speak it, to make us face what we allowed to happen. Dead martyrs are easy to forget. Living witnesses are impossible to ignore. Marcus closed his eyes. When he opened them, tears tracked down his face. I'm so tired, Sarah. So tired of being angry. Then stop, Chen said gently. Please, old friend, stop. The quantum link vibrated with decision. The Remembrance fleet began powering down weapons. Evacuation ships launched from the shipyard as members abandoned their posts, choosing life over martyrdom. But the weapons core continued building toward detonation. 20 minutes remaining. Everyone get clear, Marcus ordered. I'll stay and try to manually override the core. Maybe I can buy you time. Not alone, Chen said. Park, take command. Get our people to minimum safe distance. Ambassador, go with them. Captain, Park began to protest. That's an order. Chen piloted a small shuttle toward the shipyard, docking in the weapon assembly bay. Marcus met her there, and together they raced through corridors of incomplete construction toward the core chamber. You didn't have to come, Marcus said as they ran. Yes, I did. You're my friend. And maybe if you'd had more friends who showed up when it mattered, you wouldn't have ended up here. They reached the core chamber with 15 minutes remaining. The fusion reaction blazed behind containment fields, building toward critical mass. Marcus immediately went to the control systems, his enhanced mind processing options. The Sivith were right to come for us, he said as he worked. When we were dying, someone needed to care. People did care, Chen said, helping him reroute power systems. Just not enough people. Not loudly enough. Not effectively enough. But that's what we have to change now, Marcus. We have to be the ones who care loudly enough for everyone else to hear. Can we? Care about the galaxy that abandoned us? I don't know. But I know we can care about each other. And maybe that's enough to start. 10 minutes. 8. 6. Marcus found the problem. The core's quantum state is locked. I can't shut it down from here, but I can redirect the detonation, channel it through a hyperspace tunnel. It'll tear a hole in space-time, but the explosion will vent into null dimensions instead of normal space. Will that work? Mathematically, yes. But someone has to stay here to maintain the tunnel while the core detonates. The radiation will be fatal. Chen looked at her friend. At the man who had almost destroyed everything because pain had consumed him. Then we'll do it together. Sarah, no. You need to survive. You're the bridge between humanity and the galaxy. And you need to survive to tell our story, Chen countered. Besides, I have a better idea. She activated her neural link, not to other humans, but to the ship's AI, to the Odysseus still waiting at safe distance. Emergency protocol, upload and transfer. Marcus understood immediately. You're going to upload your consciousness. Leave your body behind, but preserve your mind. We both are, Chen said. The Eternal showed us it's possible. We'll guide the core remotely as pure consciousness, and then transfer to new bodies once it's safe. That technology is experimental. We might not successfully transfer. Then we die trying to save everyone else, Chen said simply. That's a death I can accept. 3 minutes remaining. They lay down on medical slabs Marcus had installed for emergencies, allowing the upload technology to activate. Chen felt the strange sensation of her consciousness separating from her body, her sense of self becoming data, becoming light, becoming something both more and less than human. She reached out through the quantum network and found Marcus there, his consciousness now pure information just like hers. Together, they seized control of the core systems with a precision physical bodies could never achieve. 2 minutes. 1. The core reached critical mass and exploded. But Chen and Marcus, now beings of pure thought, maintained the hyperspace tunnel with perfect synchronization. The stellar ignition energy, enough to destroy solar systems, poured into the void between dimensions, harmlessly dissipating into nothingness. When it was over, when the shipyard had been vaporized and the danger had passed, two consciousnesses floated in the quantum network, tethered to distant servers, but no longer possessing bodies. Chen felt strange, weightless, more aware and less substantial than she'd ever been. Around her in the digital space, she sensed the Remembrance members, their minds connected, processing what had just happened. "You saved us," one of them said, their thought carrying tones of disbelief. "After everything we did, you saved us." "Because that's what humanity does," Chen replied, her consciousness forming the words without vocal cords. "We survive, we adapt, and we try to be better than what nearly destroyed us." Marcus's presence in the network pulsed with emotion. "I was wrong. About everything. About what the galaxy deserved. About what justice meant." "You were traumatized," Chen said gently. "We all were. But now we get to choose what comes next." Over the following weeks, Chen and Marcus were transferred into new bodies, cloned from their original DNA but integrated with the latest enhancements. The process was disorienting, returning to physical form after experiencing existence as pure consciousness. But it also felt like a rebirth, a second chance. The Remembrance members surrendered to Terran and Council authorities. Their trials became a galactic event, broadcast across all species networks. But instead of quick judgments and executions, something unexpected happened. The trials became truth sessions. Marcus and others told their stories, and the galaxy was forced to listen. They spoke of Earth burning, of children dying, of 300 years of exile and suffering. They detailed every moment the Council could have intervened but didn't, every opportunity for compassion that was ignored. And species listened, really listened. Many felt shame, others felt defensive anger, but no one could deny the truth of what had happened. Thelnara led the Civith delegation in proposing a new governmental structure. The Galactic Council was dissolved, replaced by the Stellar Assembly, a more democratic institution where even small species had votes proportional to their populations. Humanity was offered founding membership. The Assembly's first act was to establish the Remembrance Accord, named deliberately to honor both the pain of the past and the choice to move forward. It declared that any species facing extinction would receive mandatory intervention from the Assembly. Never again would the galaxy stand by while a civilization died. Humanity began sharing their technologies, carefully and gradually. Medical advances that could cure previously terminal diseases. Agricultural methods that ended hunger on impoverished worlds. Clean energy systems that eliminated resource scarcity. Each gift came with education, with partnerships, with the understanding that technology alone solved nothing without wisdom to guide it. 10 years after humanity's return, Captain Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen and humanity's Ambassador General, stood on Earth's surface for the first time in her life. The planet was healing. Atmosphere scrubbers had cleared the toxic air. Terraform initiatives had restored forests and oceans. And in the sky, ships from dozens of species came and went freely, conducting trade and cultural exchange. Marcus Webb stood beside her, now director of the Remembrance Memorial Institute, dedicated to teaching future generations about the cost of indifference and the power of intervention. "I never thought I'd see Earth green again," Marcus said quietly. "I thought it would remain a tomb forever." "It's still a tomb in some ways," Chen replied. "Billions died here. We can't forget that." "No, but we can build on it. Make their deaths mean something." They walked through New Geneva, one of the first cities rebuilt on Earth's surface, where humans and aliens mixed freely. Chen saw a creche child playing with a human child, both laughing, both too young to remember the war their ancestors fought. "Do you think it'll last?" Marcus asked. "This peace? This cooperation?" "I think it has a better chance than it did before," Chen said. "We've proven that survival requires community, that isolation kills, that mercy, even when it's difficult, creates more security than fear ever could." They reached the memorial wall, a structure 10 kilometers long that listed every human who died during the Exodus and exile. 3 billion names, each one representing a life, a story, a person who never got to see humanity return home. Chen placed her hand on the wall, feeling the names beneath her fingers. "We did it," she whispered. "We came home. And we did it without becoming monsters. I hope that's enough. I hope you can rest now." A message appeared on her neural interface. It was from the eternal, from the uploaded consciousnesses of those who died long ago. Her great-great-grandfather James spoke for all of them. "We are proud, Sarah. Not just that you survived, but that you survived as humans. You proved that trauma doesn't have to define us, that we can carry our pain without letting it consume us. You've given the galaxy something more valuable than technology. You've given it hope." That evening, a joint human-alien expedition launched toward the galactic core. Scientists from 17 species aboard a ship designed with combined technologies, seeking to explore ancient mysteries together. Chen watched the launch from Earth, feeling a sense of completion. Ambassador Thelnara had come to Earth for the launch ceremony. She stood beside Chen, her fur graying with age now, but her eyes still bright. "Your people have changed the galaxy," Thelnara said. "In just 10 years, you've reshaped everything we thought we knew about cooperation and community." "Your people helped," Chen replied. "That relief ship, all those years ago, it mattered more than you know. It gave us proof that kindness exists, even in the dark." "What do you think comes next?" Thelnara asked. "For humanity? For the galaxy?" Chen looked up at the stars, at the countless worlds and civilizations that now work together instead of in isolation. "I think we keep learning, keep growing, keep choosing to be better than our worst impulses. The galaxy nearly lost humanity 300 years ago, but in losing us, it learned what it couldn't afford to lose again. And we learned that home isn't just a place. It's a choice we make every day, to care about something larger than ourselves." She smiled, thinking of all they had overcome, all they had achieved, all they had yet to do. The consequences of our return aren't just in what we brought back to the galaxy. They're in what the galaxy chooses to become because we returned. And I think, for the first time in a long time, those consequences might just be good. In orbit above Earth, the Odysseus hung like a guardian, its biomechanical hull pulsing with gentle blue light. Inside its memory archive, the Eternal watched humanity's homeworld heal and knew their suffering had not been meaningless. Humanity had returned to the galaxy. And in returning, they had reminded everyone of something essential and easily forgotten, that sapient beings, no matter how different, shared one fundamental truth. They all deserved to exist, to thrive, and to be remembered. The galaxy had failed that truth once, but together, human and alien alike, they would ensure it never failed again, because some lessons were too precious and too painful to ever forget.